Oops. Check, 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 check. I hope you can hear me. Okay, let me see. Oh, let me turn this back. All right. All right, let's go back live on Facebook. Okay. All right. Oops. All right. Check, check, check. I hope that y'all can hear me. I hope that y'all are doing well and enjoying your day. So it is lunchtime. I know I got something that I need to eat. And Mama Nezaa is making sure, as usual, I'm checking the audio right now, making sure that we are all eating well. Oh, hold on, let me make sure. Facebook, if you are on and you are getting audio from me, let me know. Sounds like I'm not getting audio. There we go. Okay, all right, we're good. So let me share my screen. I'm gonna share our cooking demo with Mama Nezaa. Thank you again, Mama Nezaa, for contributing to the D-Town Harvest Fest. Hope that you all are enjoying. I'm enjoying being here with you all. Give me just a moment. There we go. And I will share my screen. Hold on. Yeah, just a second, because I want to give everyone, let them watch.
Hi, I'm Mama Nezaa, or Chef Nezaa from Paradise Natural Foods. And I'm like really happy to be back this year doing a food demo for D-Town's Harvest Fest. You know, wish we were outside, but this will work too. I think we've gotten kind of used to online. Anyway, it's kind of chilly time in weather and in the types of food we think about this time of the year. So today I'm going to make a vegan chili using lots of veggies and quinoa, which maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, and some other really good ingredients. So we're going to do vegan chili today and hope you enjoy it and, you know, try it at home. Okay, so we're going to start off making a sofrito. And a sofrito is basically the same as like mirepoix or the Trinity in New Orleans. It's just the flavor mix that you make before you actually start adding all your ingredients. And just like all the other ones, they start off with an onion. So we're gonna do onions first. This is an organic onion. I always like to try to use organic whenever possible. And in my own business, I use a lot of products from D-Town, and we actually have one here today, hopefully, that we're gonna use. So we're gonna start off, and I'm taking the onion skins off, and you can save these and use them to make stock so that we don't waste. Food waste is really prevalent. Okay, so I'm probably not going to use this whole onion, so I'm going to see, I'm keeping my fingers out the way and I'm going to chop this. I don't think we need the whole onion. I'm not making my usual humongous pot of chili. Okay, so we have our onions. Put them aside for a second. And I've already washed all these ingredients. Now I'm going to chop up this bell pepper, which is also organic. Try to use organic bell peppers especially because they tend to be on the dirty dozen list a lot, which means they have a lot of pesticides. And getting them from a urban farm that practices organic principles is really the way to go. So we're chopping this up too. I like my chili a little chunky, but not like overtly so. So I'm gonna chop these up, but not super fine. Wow, you can hear this crunching, and that's how you can tell that it's really fresh. So I'm gonna add it in with my onions. And then we're gonna grab some fresh garlic. It's that time of the year too where you really wanna add all these immune boosting veggies to your meals. And just smash that so we can get the skin off. See, and it peels right off really easily. So I'm using 3 cloves. I'm not using any measurements, but kind of judging by how much chili, making like a smaller pot. And I'm going to rough chop the garlic. I don't want to mince it too small because I don't want them to burn, because then they kind of taste bitter. Okay, so we got our garlic. Now I'm gonna add some celery. And I'm just taking like the very end off. You don't have to cut this whole thing off. We waste too much of our vegetables, especially when we buy them organic. And see, that's something else that can go into our stock pot. So I'm just gonna slice this a little bit bigger than the onions and the peppers. Keeping my fingers tucked in and the knife leaning away from me, so if something happens, it's going that way and not gonna chop my fingers off. So when I get down to the bottom, because it's a little wider and I want to try to keep them all the same size. Wow, these are really, really fresh. I hear all that crunch. Okay. So now I'm getting ready to cut up my fresh greenage. This is cilantro and this is parsley. Normally Sofrito uses mostly just cilantro, but because you either love cilantro or hate it, I'm one of those people that's not too fond of it, but it loves me because it's really good for moving heavy metals from your bloodstream. So I do cook with it a lot. It's actually one of the most popular herbs, like in most dishes around the world. But what I do is I temper it by using some parsley, because it does have a very strong, pungent type of flavor. So I'm going to use a little bit of both. We do, since we're making chili, which is pretty much Latin, it's Mexican, but you know, we want to make sure we use those flavor profiles that they would use in Mexican cuisine, and they definitely would use cilantro. So I pay homage to that. I just add a little bit of parsley to temper it a little bit. And this doesn't have to be really fine. Okay. So this is what's called mise en place, when you kind of get everything together before you start to cook. Because if you're like me, sometimes you start cooking and you leave out an ingredient because you just kind of forgot about it. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is saute these ingredients to start my sofrito. Okay, so we're going to be using quinoa. I know a typical chili would probably have some kind of ground meats, but this is a vegan chili and we just want to add something for texture and to add some protein. And quinoa is actually a South American grain that is a complete nutrition profile, so it has all of that in there. So I like to cook it first and then add it. You could add it into the chili and let it cook, but then it would take a lot longer. So while everything else is cooking, I like to do that. And I like to wash it first because there's this like waxy coating on it. And so you want to wash it first and get that off. And then I'll put it in the pot. And we'll add some water. You want it to be about 1 inch over the quinoa. Okay, so while that's cooking away, we can keep on working on our sofrito. So these are plum tomatoes. If you have a really good tomato harvest, you can actually use fresh tomatoes, just take the seeds out. But these are plum tomatoes and they've been stewed. So I'm just gonna use my hands and pull them apart into pieces because kind of adds some texture to your chili, but you don't want like a big piece of tomato. So I'm just using my hands. You could take this out and chop it on a chopping board, but it's kind of messy. So I like to use my clean hands and just do it kind of like this and get it all in pieces. Yeah. Yeah, lots of different textures going on in the chili, and that just makes eating it that much more enjoyable. And the stewed tomato also adds flavor. Okay, so I just wash my hands. So now we're going to continue to make our sofrito, and we need to saute our veggies, our garlic, celery, bell peppers, onions. And I'm going to be using avocado oil. I don't like to use seed oil, so my 3 oils of choice is either avocado, coconut, or olive. They have a better balance of omega-3 and 6s, and seed oils really aren't that great for you because the balance is kind of out of whack. So I'm using avocado oil. So the quinoas came to a boil, and we're going to turn it down. As with most grains, you want it to come to a boil, then you really just want it to simmer until all the water's been absorbed. So we're going to turn it down and just let it simmer. So we're getting ready to make the sofrito, and my iron pot is hot, and so I'm just going to add a little bit of this avocado oil. And then because the pot was already hot, the oil pretty much got hot immediately. So now I'll add all those veggies we cut up. And we're gonna saute all this up. And we wanna do it until the onions are a little bit translucent, which is gonna take a few minutes. You don't want to burn them. I added everything together. Sometimes I do the onions first, the bell peppers, the celery, and the garlic last so we don't burn it, but just added everything together and just kind of keep stirring it off and on so it doesn't stick and so you can control the temperature. And iron pots are really good for making chili because they're heavy, and tomatoes tend to burn easily, so you don't want to. You want to make sure it's a heavy bottom pot. So in here I have my garlic, my onions, my celery, and my bell pepper. And I've added a little dry garlic because I like to add fresh and dry ingredients because it gives your food depth of flavor. And you're probably wondering why I'm adding everything in now before I've put all the other ingredients in. And that's because we season from the bottom up, not the top down. When you season from the bottom up and you let the spices bloom in the oil and in the heat, the cell walls open up and you just get so much more flavor. So it's gonna seem like I'm putting a lot of different things in here, but that's kind of how you build flavor. We're not gonna put a ton of any one of them, but they're all gonna come together and build flavor before we even add our beans or anything else. So I have garlic already. I'm gonna add a little bit of cumin, because we're doing Mexican, and you know, cumin is a spice used in Mexican cooking, and I'm not going to use a lot because cumin can tend to be a little overpowering. And I'm going to add some, this is dried onion, and yes, I already have the fresh, but we're going to add a little dry just to give it that extra different, you know, the dried herbs tend to be more earthy, and especially in the fall, like our taste buds are craving that earthiness from the fall harvest. And now this is Mexican oregano as opposed to regular oregano. But if all you have is regular, you could use that. We're not going to use a lot of this because we don't want it to taste Mediterranean or Italian. It's Mexican, and the fact that we're using Mexican oregano kind of help. So if you're using regular oregano, just be careful of putting too much in there. Okay, so we have cumin, garlic, onion, Mexican oregano. Um, we're going to add. This might really sound weird, but we're going to add some cinnamon, and not a lot because we don't want to really taste the cinnamon. What the cinnamon is going to do is marry with the other flavors and just add another layer of flavor. So just literally a little bit. We're not making dessert. And because we're not using any meat to give that, especially something smoky like pork or bacon or something, we're going to add some smoked paprika. And that's going to give it that same kind of smokiness, that umami flavor that you would get from meat. And you don't want to go too hard with the smoked either because it can tend to be overpowering. And of course, chili. So chili powder. So yeah, the chili powder had some of all these ingredients in it already, but I like to add just a little bit more. That's why I added the cumin and oregano and all of that, even though it's probably some in the chili powder, just because it just adds another layer of flavor. And because I'm going to use a lot more, this is the one I'm going to use the most of because we're making chili, right? And this is chili powder. So I took the top off so I could get kind of a heavier hand, maybe about a couple of tablespoons. So even though we season from the bottom up, you can always go back and adjust, right, at the end. Oh, that smells really good because the heat and the oil is kind of opening up those cells, and now you can really, those herbs are getting toasted. We're developing flavor. And when we add our other ingredients, it's going to make it even better. And I'm going to add just a little bit more avocado oil. Yeah. So the only thing I haven't added yet is salt. And I'm going to do that now. And actually, I love using this salt. It's a herb sea salt. So instead of just the salt flavor, it's going to have some flavor to it. And you're going to notice that I'm going to use a few different salt or salty taste. I'm not going to use a whole lot of any one of them, but they all add something different. So I'll use a little bit of this herbamare or herb sea salt. And then I'm going to add a couple of bouillon cubes. I know it's a lot of stuff, but that's how you make your food taste good, right? You don't want it to be one note. I mean, salt and pepper and chili powder you could have done, but then you wouldn't get awesome chili. And we want this to be awesome. So I'm putting 2 of these cubes in here, adding more umami. Umami is kind of that savory flavor that a lot of times when you eat vegan food, you might be missing. So you want to add things that will mimic that. And that's what we did with the smoked paprika, with the earthiness of the cumin, and with this bouillon cube. It's a vegetable one. They have different kinds. There's a not beef, not chicken. I could have used any of those. I typically have the vegetable one because it just goes with everything. Okay, so now all my veggies are great. They're caramelized. Now I'm going to add my tomato paste. Yep, we're making sofrito, and sofrito is your caramelized onions and your tomato paste. Now, you know how stuff tastes like tomatoey? That's usually because we don't cook out. Just like when we're doing gravy and we got to cook out the floury taste. So that's what I'm doing now with this tomato paste. I'm literally kind of cooking out, and I thought I needed all this, but I really don't because I'm not making that huge a pot. So, and the reason I'm using tomato paste and tomatoes as opposed to tomato sauce is because, again, tomato paste adds umami, but it's also going to act as a thickener. So it's going to thicken up the juice from the tomatoes, which I'm about to add now because I think we're good. So I'm going to add my tomatoes. So we're basically building a flavor base. That's what we're doing before we even add the beans, right? Building a flavor base, and that's what's going to give the chili its awesomeness. As opposed to one note, you're going to have complexity. So it'll be like a party in your mouth kind of thing. Okay, so now I've got the tomatoes in here. Now it's a little soupy. I'm going to add my beans. We're going to add our beans and lots of the juice. And these are organic black beans. And, you know, everyone likes their chili with different types of beans. Sometimes you can use kidney beans or a mixture of beans. I love black beans, so that's what I use. But you can use whatever you like or a mixture of beans. Actually, my favorite chili is made with anasazi beans, which is a kind of an ancient bean from South America, but it's very hard to find. So I love black beans, so that's what we're adding. I'm going to add a little bit more. It's getting pretty thick, and I think I might want to add some water. Just going to add a little bit of water just to loosen it up a bit. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to add the quinoa we cooked earlier to this, right? And that's going to add some thickness. So we don't want the spoon to stand up in a chili. So add some water. And just let this, I'm just going to stir this to get all that fond, that's the bits on the bottom of the pot. You get, that brings tons of flavor, and you want to stir that in to your chili. And then this is the quinoa we cooked earlier. And actually I probably made too much, which I do. But what I would do is put some of this away in the fridge for meal prep for something else, maybe some burgers or something, or with another meal. And I'm gonna add about 2 big spoonfuls of this quinoa. So if you're making regular meat chili, the quinoa is a substitute for the ground meat that you would put in here. And you could put the quinoa in here without cooking it first, but I found when you do that, it takes a long time for it to cook. So I prefer to put it in already cooked. And this is where, if you were cooking this on, say, wash day or cleaning your house day or something, you could turn it down really low and just cook it low and slow. But it tastes just as good if you just let it cook for maybe another 15-20 minutes, because the beans were already cooked. I used a canned bean, but they were organic, and I made sure to get a can that has an enamel insides, and it's no BPA and all of that. You know, if you're going to use canned products, just make sure you use really good quality, because they're real good convenience on a day like today where it's kind of rainy outside and you want a pot of chili, but you don't have all day to soak beans and, you know, all of that. So yeah, so see the texture of this? This is what you want, because it's going to thicken up even more as it cooks. So the only other thing I want to add to this is, remember I said we're going to use 3 different salts, but not a lot of either one. So I'm going to add a little bit of tamari. And the tamari is also going to add some more umami. And to add sweetener or not to add sweetener, I add sweetener to anything that I use tomatoes with, because tomatoes can tend to be a little acidic. And I'm not talking about making it sweet. You know, there was this whole thing going on around Facebook about whether you should put sugar in your tomato sauce. Yes, not a lot though. You're not trying to make sweet sauce. You're trying to round out the flavors, and the sweetener does that. But I'm not using sugar. I'm using monk fruit, which if you're dealing with diabetes or you're insulin resistant, this has no sugar in it. It does not raise your blood sugar. It's perfectly acceptable for people with diabetes, but it will act as regular sugar would in this without making it too sweet, and just round out those flavors, all those herbs and different things we put in there. We want them all to come together and give us a flavor profile where we're kind of, as we're eating it, we're trying to figure out, oh, what is that I taste? What is that I taste? Because it's all kind of blended together. And at this point, basically, you would just cover your pot and let it simmer. And like I said, if it's wash day or clean your house day, turn it down low, and you could let it go low and slow for like an hour or so. We're gonna cook this for about 15 minutes. So we're gonna come back and check on it in a minute and see how it's doing. and then I'll show you what we're gonna do with it afterwards. Okay, so our chili is done, and I just want to show you some of the different ways that you can use, make a pot of chili and have it several different ways. Nowadays, meal prep is pretty popular, so especially something that's a little more time consuming, like chili, you don't want to make enough just for one time. Make it for different times, but you don't want to maybe eat it the same way. So here we just have a bowl of chili, and I can kind of zhuzh it up a little bit by adding maybe some vegan cheese shreds on top of it, and maybe a little dollop of sour cream, and have that with a big green salad, maybe some corn muffins, and you're good to go. Or we can make some nachos, right? So usually we're doing just seasoned beans on our nacho, but I love chili nachos. So I'm just gonna I've already sprinkled some of my vegan cheese shreds, and I'm gonna take some of the chili and put on top of these blue corn chips. And I love blue corn chips because they tend to be less hybridized than the yellow ones. And so we're just gonna cover these with some of this chili. And then on both of them, we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of this cilantro and parsley, which I cut up a little finer than the one I put actually in the chili, just to add some freshness, and a couple of dollops of sour cream on here. If you want, you could put some sliced jalapenos, you could put some black olives, you could put this on a bed of salad, however you like your nachos, right? And you're ready for game day or movie night or whatever. So make a pot of chili, because it's fall, and what says fall more than chili, right? And then portion it out so that you can have it different ways during the week. Thank you all for coming. We hope you enjoy our online Harvest Fest, and see you when we're back out on the farm again.
All right, that was wonderful. Thank you to Mama Nezaa. She said that she was watching also. I'm glad that she got to see her awesome self in the kitchen. I want to give a shout out to Akivalon Village, where we taped a lot of the things for the Harvest Fest this year. You just want to chew on the camera. So I hope everyone is enjoying their lunch, whether you're making chili like Mama Nezaa just showed us how to. I know she definitely revolutionized the way that I had been making chili for a long time. So I'm excited to make it her way. And we are excited to continue sharing bits and pieces with you of the work that we've done to commemorate 15 years of DBC FSN. So stay tuned. We're going to take another break, and we will be hearing from some of our founding members. Some of our founding members introduced themselves and talked about their contributions. I think one of the things that is very meaningful to me is that so many of the founders wore so many hats. It wasn't just one person was doing one thing and somebody else was doing something else. Everybody, it really, true cooperative economics. And so it's fantastic to see that in action. So I'm going to be hearing first from Mama Abba. So stay tuned for a video from Mama Abba. All of these videos also are going to be available moving forward on our YouTube page. So if you missed anything or you stepped away for a second, you want to tune in, you can go to our YouTube page and subscribe, first of all. And then there is a group of videos under 2021 Harvest Fest, right? And so you can see all of the videos that we're showing you here. You're gonna say hello to everyone. Please stop and don't eat my food. You have your own. And don't rub your hands on your dress because it's gonna get spaghetti sauce on it. Hey, I'm recording right now. So what else did I want to say? We're on YouTube. If you missed anything, next up is, and also I wanted to give a plug for 4 o'clock. So we had some of our founders who were able to come and do videos and talk to us about their contributions to the organization. Some obviously don't still live here or elsewhere, and so we're not able to come and be taped. but will be joining us at 4 o'clock for a Zoom. We will be doing a 4 o'clock Zoom with some of the other founding members of the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network to hear from them live about, this is really also, it's a storytelling project, right? So getting the founders to tell some of the stories that have sustained DVC FSN for the past 15 years so that those stories can continue to sustain us as we move our movement forward, right, Samantha? Yes. So another break. See you back at, I think it's 1:15. 1:15, we will hear from Mama Abba. And please be sure to share, right? Once we start going live, once we're going live with the video, share so everybody can join in and see. We want as many people to join and celebrate with us today as possible. And we appreciate you. And thank you. We'll be back shortly. Peace.